evening and welcome to the Jenks Center. We're located in Winchester, Massachusetts, and this evening's program is Composer's Corner with host Andrew Celentano and guest Elizabeth Austin. But first, I'd like to thank the Cummings Foundation for a generous grant that they've given us for the next 10 years, and it is making this evening's programming possible. A little bit of information. Please be aware that this event is being recorded, and if you don't want to be in the recording, please turn off your camera now. And thank you for joining us this evening. If you have any comments, questions, anything, please put it in the chat function and we will address it at the question and answer portion of the program. Please stay muted during the program. And you will also receive after an online survey, and we appreciate you filling that out for us. That is part of our the requirement for our grant. In March, we have an in-person event at the Jenks Center in Winchester, helping solve the climate crisis. Winchester's approach with Sustainability Director Ken Pruitt, and that's on March 1st. We have Composer's Corner with pianist Ben Schwendener, and that's on the 8th, and that is a virtual program. We have a virtual Fiddler on the Roof with Deborah Block on March 15th. We have Acrylics for the Aspiring Painter with Eli Portman. This is part 2, but you're certainly welcome to sign up. Even if you didn't do the first part of it, and that's on the 20th. That's a Sunday morning. We have a one-woman show, Helen Keller with Cheryl Fay. That's on the 22nd. We have soprano Cara Bender and pianist Leona Chung. They will be virtually joining us from the Boston Conservatory on the 29th of March. In February, we have an in-person event at the Jenks Center in Winchester, Valentine's Day Traditions in Boston with author Anthony Samarco, and that's on the 15th of February. We have a virtual Chinese New Year celebration with Jennifer Zhang. She is the director of the Winchester Chinese School, and that's on the 22nd. And that brings us to this evening. And I would like to, of course, introduce my husband, Andrew Celentano, who is a composer and our interviewer for this event this evening. Hold on one moment. And we are being joined by Elizabeth Austin. She will learn all about her musical beginnings. She's a talented contemporary classical composer with compositions ranging from solo piano pieces to chamber music to orchestral pieces to operas. And I'm going to just fill you in a little bit on her education. It includes the Peabody Conservatory, the Conservatoire Americana in Fontainebleau, France, the Hartt School of Music, University of Hartford, where she earned a master's in music. While studying for her Ph.D. at the University of Connecticut, she won her first prize in the Lipscomb Electronic Music Competition. Elizabeth's awards have included a Connecticut Commission on the Arts grant, first prize in the Mariam Gideon Competition, and a Rockefeller Foundation residency at Bellagio, Italy. Dr. Austin was also the Vanderbilt University Composer in residence in 2015. Welcome, Elizabeth and Andrew. Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you, Hillary. Dr. Austin, I'm so glad you're here today. There's a little bit of feedback, so please, some people just mute yourselves if there's still feedback.
Well, it's so wonderful, Andrew, to do this, and since you're a composer yourself, it is quite an honor, really, to do this. And I simply want to give a shout out to the listeners because they are really adventurous. If you're listening to new music, fasten your seatbelt. It's a little different. And also, of course, the performers. I just would like, they're, as far as I'm concerned, co-creators. That's why you have very many arrangements of a single piece of music. So I simply want to thank you all.
Well, that's wonderful. I have to say that although it is modern music, you're a modern composer, I have to say there are some modern composers where it just sounds like stones are falling on the keyboard at random, but you actually have a way of writing that is very lyrical and organic, and there's something about it that's really well engineered or well crafted, and we want to learn more about how you do it. Before we do that, I just want to show you some of the CDs that I can't hold them all in one hand. These are some of the CDs she had me go through, and those are not even all hers. Then we have these wonderful CDs. We have the Eagle Flies that has the Wilderness Symphony on it, and then we have Reflective Light, which is just a wonderful one that's just timeless and worth buying.
All available on Amazon.
There you go. And Window Pane, which
that's
is
the latest. Yeah.
So I had the most wonderful time the last couple of weeks listening to all of that. And we just will not have time to cover a lot of it tonight, but we'll cover some key things and get a taste of what you do. But before we get into it, I'd love to find out more about how were you when you were a child? Did you come from a musical family? What's your background, and how did you decide to get into music?
Thank you for asking. My daddy came from Georgia. He was a Southerner, and children love to see parents having fun. And every Friday night in the kitchen, my mother's friend came over and they'd get the highballs out. Daddy would get his ukulele out. Oh, wow. And I can remember that from the time I was a toddler. Wow. And then my sister Jean, whom I adored, took piano lessons at home. And apparently I hid in the dining room under the table while the teacher was teaching Jean. And then when they left, I tried to play. I guess I was 2 or 3. And apparently I was an enfant terrible, because if I couldn't get the notes the way I heard them, I would bang and roll on the floor. So that was the introduction to my music making.
Love it.
However, I was so fortunate. Baltimore had the Peabody Institute. And so the Peabody Prep, I could get on the bus when I was about 10 years old, having studied 2 years in public school piano lessons. And I'm giving a real shout out for that, because that set me on my way at the age of 7. It was great. And I took the bus down to Peabody, and I spent the whole day, not only with piano, but with a wonderful teacher who came from Vermont when I was 12, her name Grace Newsom Cushman. The Walden School in New Hampshire now is the extension of Mrs. Cushman's work. Seth Brenzel is the director. I couldn't recommend this 6-week, they call it a camp, it's a music school, and they talk about thinking in time, not this dry 4-part harmony, but they sit down and say, here is the 4 beats to a measure, here is your chords, and then see what you can improvise. And really that set me up beautifully. It's still there, and I'd be happy to give anyone, you can look up the Walden School online. And for people from say 8 or 9 through 18, that's the place for you if you're writing music.
Oh my God. I wish I could go back and do that again and get it.
Yeah.
That's great. So tell us a little bit about how you think about music, because you definitely have a great way of looking at it that's unique. And
well, if you don't mind, Andrew, I was thinking everyone wants to kind of compose or write music. Everyone has a tune in their head. And I'm sure people are very frustrated. They start when they're very small. And they say, all right, I'm going to start, as my oldest grandson said when he was 2, sitting on the grass, Mimi, I'm going to sing you an opera. And he started singing. And I think it is in us all. And I'd like to encourage people first of all, just to get a piano. It doesn't have to be a Steinway. It can be a regular piano if you have a child or if you are an adult child. I would buy a piano because the keys, the notes are ready made. The poor violinist has to make those notes, or the trombone. But it would be so good if once you have the piano and you start just fooling around and say, all right, so we have one note. And if you have that note an octave higher, it's called an interval. And then you start to learn that you can have various widths of intervals of an eighth, a seventh, sixth, a second, a third, and that's the material that you start with, that I start with. With the two notes, and you combine that, two intervals, you get a 3-note triad. I'm going to skip way ahead, but this is what you first think about when you're writing music. And I would simply like to say, to encourage you to move yourself right into that and see what happens.
Well, that's wonderful. By the way, what I'd like to do is share a little bit with folks for a minute here. I have taken the liberty of sending people in my invites some of the websites that you're featured on. This is your website, Elizabeth. AustinMusic.com, and we'll talk about a couple of things in a minute, but this has a great list of your works. It's not totally complete, but it's really very good. Then we have another listing here, which is the interview with you, which is a real wonderful interview. And then we have another interview here. This is on a separate site. It's BruceDuffy.com. Is that a fan of yours, perhaps?
Bruce Duffy is quite a personage in the music world because he interviews every composer. He's quite something.
Now, one of the things you mentioned in there is the golden ratio, and I know that in terms of I know that in terms of photography, where you kind of have a rectangle out of a rectangle that still leaves a square or something. There's some ratio, but how does that work in the music world?
Well, Andrew, you are absolutely right. The golden mean, or the golden ratio, goes through fine art. Da Vinci used it. It goes through maybe also writing. But the golden mean, this pre-compositional decisions, I'm so glad that you're heading us in that direction, because you can improvise. You can learn simply to sit down and, and that's great fun. But when you compose, you want to think about the structure of a piece. And the structure is set in time. And the golden ratio is when you divide up a whole line or whole time into several sections, the most important of which is about 2/3 of the way through, 0.618. And that is huge for me and for a lot of people. And then you can divide this golden mean into smaller segments. And so you know exactly when the climatic parts will be even before you get a musical idea. So that's really important to think about. I want to also say I have a very dear friend and composer himself. He is a composition faculty at Vanderbilt, and he wrote a book called Women of Influence in Contemporary Music. And he wrote the chapter on my music. This is also available at Amazon and so on. But he also does a lot of analysis of what my music is all about. As a matter of fact, I learned a lot about my music from reading Michael Strapp. I'm serious.
Can you show us the title one more time so people can write it down?
Yes, yes.
Women of Influence and Contemporary, Michael Slayton. Excellent.
It has quite a few women composers, Libby Larsen, Jennifer Higdon, and I couldn't recommend that enough. What I'll open up with, then my forte with the intervals is, I know that thirds are very sweet. And when you invert a third, you get a sixth. And if you put the two together, they're very pretty. So I thought, well, why don't I take a minor third and a minor sixth? It's a little bit sanguine, it's a little bit chromatic.
Right.
But if you fill them in, you can have a major triad inversion and a minor triad. And all that is 2 6 together. So that's my language. If you're going to be listening, it's the same thing as a scale. If you start with a minor third or a minor sixth, and you go up the keyboard, you get a beautiful scale. And if you scrunch them all together into a scale, you're going to find there are literally 8 half steps, but it's all in these sixths.
That's fascinating. That's great.
And I love that sound. And so I just kind of want to push the difference between improvising and composing. You think about thinking in time, and Bartók invented this thirds and sixths way before I did. So it's not my invention.
There is so much to cover tonight. We're not going to do justice to the breadth and scope of what you do, but I want to kind of share a couple of things. And before I do, there's just one other website. This is, I think, the third one down, American Composers Alliance, that has a wonderful biography on you. And then there's a particular link that I sent people. It ends in GIE. This one has you posing with a turtle, which is fun in itself. But what's great about this is if people are short for time, not only can they enjoy your music, but there's a whole analysis, a biography about you on top of it, so they can read all about you and listen to your music at the same time, which I thought is very efficient, and that's a wonderful way to get the beginning of that for you.
Well, American Composers Alliance in New York, Gina Genova is the director, has such a stable full of fantastic American composers. That's also available online, ACA, American Composers. You can buy my music right there. They are my editor, frankly.
Excellent.
And you can buy music by Michael Slayton and many, many other fantastic American composers. ACA.
Excellent. Now, you've done a lot of different things. In fact, in the list I gave people in my invite, and here's a whole list of them, you've written all kinds of things for clarinets and brass and harpsichord, violoncello, symphonies, and we're not going to cover all of this tonight, but it's just wonderful to see the breadth and scope of what you've done. I'm going to play just a little bit of one of my favorites, which is early. It's back in the 70s, I think, with the synclavier, which is the clavier double. I just want to play a little bit of it because it's just such a wonderful, very different kind of thing. Do you want to say a few words before I click into it?
It's just electronic. The synclavier was the first synthesizer out in the 70s, and I was studying at the UConn then, and so I wanted to use the synclavier synthesizer, but then write something for it. And my wonderful friend Jerry Reed, who was in Nashville at Lipscomb, the pianist, one of them, par excellence, has done this. You'll hear Jerry.
Okay, so here it is. I could listen to it all night, but I think
Oh,
it's just wonderful. And you know what I love about it is it just also the way you have it. What's the technique that you have the stereo effect, which is, oh my God, I feel like I could be meditating.
well, that was all the electronic sound. And right
Oh.
at that point, then the piano comes in
Mhm.
and tries to, I have another piece called Ghosts, where the electronic is spooking the performer. And it's kind of a play on electronics.
I love it. I'm not sure I heard that one. That's another one I have to
No, it's just actually a nice young man in Iowa just asked for it.
Oh my, okay. Now I want to go back to the three famous pieces that got you noticed by Nadia Boulanger, who, by the way, is known as one of the premier teachers of modern composition. She's taught the likes of Aaron Copland and Quincy Jones, and one composer called her the best teacher since Socrates. So you had a semester with her overseas, I believe. Was that in Paris?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
What was
Yeah.
that like? That must have been amazing.
It was amazing. I was studying at Goucher College. I decided to go to a liberal arts school since I knew I was a composer and needed to know a lot in a lot of broad fields. Since I had also, of course, the Peabody right there too. But Nadia came because our music teacher had studied, Elliot Galkin had studied with her. And we were chosen then. My friend did sing these songs, and she gave me a scholarship to study that summer at Fontainebleau. And I went with my harpist friend, Ruth Dahlstrom Galkin, and we had an amazing summer, and it opened everything up for me.
Wow.
And Boulanger was quite something. I can tell some anecdotes. We were all gathered around the piano at one point, and all of a sudden, she was great friends with Stravinsky. In came the mail, and the very first eyes to see the score, Boulanger opened it up from his Thraney, which was, I think, his attempt at some serial music.
Wow.
And this was way back in the 50s. I'm an old lady by now, but I can attest to the fact that was a thrill.
Wow. So we're going to play Love Song, and this is about 2.5 minutes. And you know, the voices are somewhat operatic. Do you want to give us a little background on the three Rilke Lieder and what that's about in general?
I think it may speak for itself. The Rilke Lieder. I think you're going to hear the German. I have German and English in everything I do. My husband taught German at University of Connecticut, and so we spent quite a lot of time, a whole semester in Mannheim, Germany.
Oh, wow.
And that whole opened the door to a lot. But how Rilke love song was especially dear. And I think you're going to hear a fabulous baritone, Christopher Grundy, who lives and teaches in Stamford, and Amanda Cole, who is now in Chicago.
Wonderful. Okay, here we go.
How shall I withhold my soul so that it does not touch on yours? How shall I lift it high above you to somewhere beyond? How willingly would I give it shelter somewhere lost in darkness, in the darkness, an unknown silent place that vibrates no more. When your very deepness vibrates. Yet everything that touches us, you and me, you and me,
You and me,
takes us together
as the bow stroked does, that out of two strings draws a single sound. Upon what instrument are we spanned? And what artist has us in his hand? Oh, sweet song.
So beautiful. Elizabeth, what inspired that song? Is there a special story behind that you can share with us?
Actually, I have to say, I was just about to go into, I think I was about 20 years old.
Mhm.
And someone dear had given me a book of Rilke, and I still adore anything of Rilke I'd like to set.
Mm.
And I simply started to write. This is very tonal. And as a matter of fact, this is how this started out. And I was always an adventuresome type too. And so I wanted to see what was going on outside of this 18th century tonal system. And my language is still tonal. Those tonal centers move very fast, but there is still tonality in the back of everything now.
You know, even
I
though
don't know.
it's
Yes.
avant-garde for its time, it's really very lyrical and easy to listen to in a good way. I mean, it's just it seems so organic and natural. It's just wonderful.
Well, you're dear, Tony. You should develop one composer's corner and let us hear your music online.
Maybe someday. And you know what I love about your works too is you're inspired by so many things and people. You have a whole series of songs from the Portuguese, and I didn't know what that meant at first, except that you explained to me that Elizabeth Barrett Browning's her husband's nickname for her was Little Portuguese.
Exactly.
And, Bertolt Brecht, Goethe, E.E. Cummings, Emily Dickinson. In fact, here's something. I still want to get the recording of this. I felt a funeral in my brain by Emily Dickinson. Oh my God.
That's actually on YouTube. I wrote a carillon piece, and you can look it up, the carillon with my name. And a wonderful carillonist even did a video and played this on a carillon in Cohasset, Massachusetts. You can look it up now.
Okay.
Now, The Funeral in My Brain, I just put down the words of the Dickinson poem, but it's the bell tolling that you'll hear in the carillon piece.
Excellent. Now, the next thing I thought we'd listen to is inspired by Carl Sandburg's poem, is the Wilderness Symphony. And it goes on for the first movement, I think, goes on for about 18 minutes. So we're not going to listen to all of that, but you've given me little points to jump to. And so why don't we play the first few minutes, and I'm going to play the first minute or so, and then bring it down a little bit. You can talk over some of the key things, and starting around
This is a big tone poem. It's one big movement, and you will hear at the outset, I'm trying to set the landscape for the wilderness. And so then you will be hearing some themes that are using the ninth, and you'll hear them going one way and then another. Thanks then,
okay.
Andrew. There's the theme with the violin. Pretty menacing. This is wild animal time.
Trumpets.
You're going to hear all of the animals one by one. Probably we don't have time, but this is the Sandburg poem called Wilderness. Man and woman, two reciters will be. That's the heartbeat. And the heartbeat This is a Petrushka quote. He's a puppet who wants to come to life. And this is a central theme.
jump ahead to 5. The wolf.
There is a fox in me.
We've skipped about 5-6 minutes. Here's the fox.
A silver gray fox.
You hear the banjo in the background. Sandberg played banjo.
Ah.
I sniff and guess. I pick things out of the wind and air. I nose in the dark night and take sleepers and eat them and hide the feathers. I circle and loop and double cross.
We're going to jump to the hog now. This is the male voice.
Oh, okay.
There is a hog in me. A snout and a belly. A machinery for eating and grunting. A machinery for sleeping satisfied in the sun. I got this too from the wilderness, and the wilderness will not let it go!
And now the fish.
In me, I know I came from salt blue water gates. I scurried with shoals of herring. I blew waterspouts with porpoises. Before land was, before the water went down, before Noah, before the first chapter of Genesis.
I love the sounds of creation. It really is wonderful. We have the baboon coming up.
Melinda Lieberman was the singer.
Clambering clawed, dog-faced, yawping a galoot, hunger,
Baboon.
hairy under the armpits. Here are the hawk-eyed, hankering men. Here are the blonde and blue-eyed women. Here they hide, curled asleep, waiting. Ready to snarl and kill. Ready to sing and give milk.
Anthony King. He's a male.
Now you have a climax with the eagle.
Eagle in me.
That's the eagle now. That's climax.
And a mockingbird.
And the eagle flies among the rocky mountains of my dreams.
And the mockingbird warbles in the early forenoon before the dew is gone.
And the eagle fights among the Sierra crags of what I want.
And the mockingbird warbles in the underbrush of my Chattanoogas of hope. Gushes over the blue Ozark foothills of my wishes.
You have all the animals coming up in a reprise.
This is a big reprise at the Golden Mean. There's
Ah.
2/3 of the way. Each instrument plays the theme of the animal here. Theme and inversion. Heartbeat in the background.
Well, let's move on to the climax.
This now is the climax coming.
Yeah. And what differentiates a human being from a wild animal? Is sing and kill and work.
Here it comes. There's the solo violin, denoting a single
I
individual.
got something else. It is a man-child heart.
A woman-child heart.
So that's what distinguishes us.
It is a
Father and mother and mother. It came from God knows where.
It is going to God knows where.
For I am the keeper of...
I'm sorry. I accidentally hit too soon. Oh, come on.
It is a
Father and mother and lover. It
There's
came
a heart.
from God knows where.
It is going to God knows where.
For I am the keeper of the sea.
I am the keeper of the sea.
I say yes and no.
I say yes. I
Sing
say
and kill, work.
That's the only song. I sing and kill and work. It's the only song. It's a warning.
I am a pal of the world.
I came from the
Wilderness.
A reminder that we each have a wilderness inside of us.
Some more than others.
Now, I'm really hoping this has been recorded. It was recorded in Czechoslovakia. However, it hasn't been received its premiere yet. So I'm hoping that one wonderful orchestral conductor will hear this
Yeah.
and give me a premiere.
So it's very engaging. And by the way, I will tell you that I'm sorry I had to chop it up because we don't have enough time to cover everything. But when I listened to it in its entirety, it gave me goosebumps. It really is. Builds up to something quite wonderful. Now this next one, the Symphony Number 2, the Lighthouse Symphony. Again, we won't be able to play all of it, but I especially love the fact that you tell me this was inspired when you went to Watch Hill. Do you want to talk a
Yes.
little bit about that?
My favorite place in the world, the Watch Hill Beach, down in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. And I sat many a time looking at the white lighthouse. And I started to try to make that lighthouse beam, which is, of course, you look at it, into music, taking time. So I recorded when the beam would shut on and off. So I turned it into kind of a sonic beam. You'll hear this at the beginning. And here again, time plays an important part here. This lighthouse illuminates, goes into the water, and they're bellboys. And all of the quotes that you hear come from these bobbing bellboys. They're all quotes of the sea. The climax you will hear is Debussy's La Mer, the sea. But you'll hear Dover Beach. All of these come into the waves, so to speak. I guess I'm being a little bit crude about this, but it's also connected to Mannheim because we have a lighthouse here, and later on we have a water tower, which is a central figure of Mannheim, Germany. And so they are very, very similar. We don't have the time to explain how I unite these, but this is how it works.
Well, I'm going to play the first few minutes. I especially love the way it builds up. You can just feel the majesty of the lighthouse and the way the beam comes at you and passes you. It's almost like a Doppler.
And yes, it gets, the time between the beams gets shorter and shorter, and you mark that out, of course, in time.
That's wonderful. Here we go.
Lighthouse, the lighthouse. That's a Doppler effect I was trying to make with the theme, the light going in a Doppler effect. So that's the theme. 2 notes, A, G sharp.
And then you have a melodic motive coming out around here. We have a heartbeat coming up. Those the buoys, the bell buoys?
Those are the bell buoys.
I'm going to jump ahead to the waves breaking.
Yeah, right. That's the one there. Whoa,
Homage
in
to
the
WC.
background.
I love that.
And the Debussy, that's 2/3 of the way through.
I
That
love
old golden mean served me well.
another wonderful piece. I encourage people to listen to it. It's really wonderful. Okay, so we are running a little late on time. I do want to sneak in just very quickly a couple little things. This is from your puzzle preludes. Just play a little bit of it. Well, this one goes only for 1 minute and 40 seconds. Do you want to talk about the genesis of that a little
The
bit?
puzzle preludes are all based on quotes that if the listener can ferret it out a little bit, it would be great. That's the puzzle. And
Okay.
you're going to hear, is it the first one you'll play?
I was actually going to play the fourth one.
All right, okay. Great.
There's one coming up I recognize. Yes, I played that. Okay, we're going to move on to another one real quick.
Yeah,
This is-
I apologize for being a little esoteric there, people. Yeah, I guess you really have to be a music. You have to know the Beethoven.
How many different call-outs were there? Were there multiple ones?
There was only one
I did
one
call
little
that
quote there.
Beethoven, yeah.
And here again, in a way, I am saying a mea culpa because
No.
you've got to be a little bit knowledgeable.
I guarantee most of the pianists in this room recognize that immediately. This is called I Cannot Grasp. It's from A Woman's Love. Do you want to give us just a little background on that before I jump into it? It's only about a minute long, this particular one.
Which one is it?
This is a woman's I Cannot Grasp It.
Oh, yes. This is Schumann's set chamisso poem, A Woman's Life and Love, Frauenliebe und Leben. This is one of the chamisso poems that he did not set. It was a very struggle. Chamisso in the 19th century really portrays a woman who is totally in love and yet a little subservient to really her lord and master. And in this century, there's a woman, an author, Austrian, Ingeborg Bachmann, who set in her novel Malina quite a different character, brought her a little bit more assertively up to date. And so this is a big dichotomy. And here is a woman you're going to hear in the throes of hysteria, really, because she doesn't know what's happening to her, and yet she's being, frankly, manipulated by this lover of hers. And you'll hear, hopefully, this scattered staccato in her brain.
Yeah. Well, I love the way you took this concept and expanded on it. And I also like, there's about 7 of these gems in the whole suite that you built, but this is a shorter one. So let's hear it now.
This is German and English, both versions. You can.
Mm-hmm. As short as that was, I'm going to cut it short because I do want to make sure we cover one other quick thing. There's so much to cover. I want to talk for a minute about the ginkgo. Am I saying that correctly? Ginkgo? This is something from Goethe, I believe, right?
Yes, Goethe, he wrote a poem about the bilobed leaf of the ginkgo biloba. Mm-hmm. Go on.
What I love about this particular sketch is you actually had your performers arranged in that shape, and then move around during the performance. So that was really quite fun. And
there's a floor diagram of the ginkgo and how the singers start here and they tie up the. It's. I think it's fun for the performers. I hope.
I hope you don't mind. We're going to go just a little bit over, but I want to make sure we squeeze one more in, and then we'll do the finale. So I wanted to just do a little bit of your Zodiac suite, and this is a short piece called Sagittarius. You know, you were kind enough to share some of your music with me. I have a hard time sight reading in general, but really hard for things that I don't anticipate. And this has a lot of unanticipated yet wonderful material. How do you write this down? It must take forever to write this out, or do you use some kind of a?
I write it down, and I've been very blessed to, instead of buying clothes, which I love, I pay for copyists sometime. I don't have one right now.
Wow. Well,
could we end with the hoedown so that the people don't think I'm a complete wild woman?
Let's do it. Yes, this is
the
American Triptych. Yep.
And it's a hoedown. This is for piano, and you might be hearing some Turkey in the Straw, Skip to My Lou. These are snippets of American folk tunes.
I love it. All kinds of great call-outs. Here we go. Slow it a little bit so you can talk over it if you'd like.
Right. This is Prokofiev. Believe it or not, it's supposed to be goofy because it's a quadlipit. You can look that up. Not an easy piece to
Wow.
This is Bach's family used to do what he called a quadlibet, which is like a free-for-all, like you're putting all sorts of quotes and everything in, and they used to amuse themselves with something like this.
I love that word. Quadliped? Is that what you said? Quadliped?
It's Quadlibet, a quadlibet. It's like a free-for-all, is all I can say. Everything gets put in.
You know, I'm fascinated by words. I try to learn a new crazy word every day, and this is the word. I learned a word recently, defenestration, which means to be thrown out a window. I can't believe there's even a word for that. There's so many words for things in the world. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. There's so much I'd love to. There's 3 more hours of stuff at least that we could cover.
Thank you, dear Andrew, and thank you so much, all of you wonderful people who are being very brave.
We're very glad to be here with you. We had some wonderful comments. In fact, someone said that they were really moved. But, you know, they said you moved the choreography in me. You're the choreographer in me. So people are really moved by this stuff. You can't listen to it, but help get goosebumps for it. I'm going to open up to the floor now and see if anyone has any questions. So please unmute yourselves and feel free to ask a question.
Dankeschön, Frau Austin. Guten Abend. And thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome. Do you have a question for us?
Have you written anything for organ?
Yes, I have. I play the organ at St. Paul's in Wyndham Center. A small organ, not a self-respecting organist would play. It's 19th century.
Those are wonderful.
But I do have organ music. As I say, the American Composers Alliance sells my music. If you write to me with email, I could talk to you more about it.
Excellent. Hillary, when we
Okay.
send out the response, we can send people the email too. Right?
Okay, can I say something?
Please, yeah.
Okay, so I know Elizabeth a little bit, and sometimes she is a little bit too fast. In this case, she was already in the Czech Republic when she should have said about the Wilderness Symphony that it was recorded in Poland, in Krakow. So that was the only thing where you were in a rush to get to the second symphony that was recorded in Olmütz in the Czech Republic.
Gerhard, thank you so much. Gerhard's not only our husband, he's also the technician that helped us set everything up tonight. So we really appreciate that. Otherwise, you'd be looking at the piano and not her face. So we really have a great view there. You know, by the way, Rosalind is a great professional organist. So I'm glad, Rosalind, you're pursuing that. That would be wonderful.
I'd love to give her this piece then.
Oh my God.
Just a second. I also wanted to throw in the name of Ulrich Urban, who is a very good friend of mine, but he did all these playings and continues to play Elizabeth in Germany and Lithuania and so on and so forth.
He lives in Leipzig.
Excellent. By the way, someone asked earlier on the chat, do you have a favorite key that you like to work in, or is it more tonal center and not key related?
I love all the keys, I have to say, because it's more, it's a different story. I really don't have a hierarchy like the tonal system of the 18th century is, you know, daddy do, mother sol. I don't quite have that, but it's too late to talk anymore about that.
Yeah. Any other questions before we wrap it up here?
One quick one. I'm curious to know, would you consider yourself an impressionist?
Wow, what a good question. I don't think so. I mean, I will be under the sod if I ever compare myself to Debussy or the likes. I think I'm closest of all to Bartók, what he was thinking about.
By the way, speaking of Debussy, I'm reading a wonderful book right now called The Painter and Sound. And for the life of me, I always wondered why he didn't like to be called an impressionist. And I recently found out why. Because here, listen to this. Thank you for setting me up for this. But listen to this review he got from his professors back when he was studying. Monsieur Debussy assuredly does not sin through platitude and banality. On the contrary, has a very pronounced tendency towards the research of the strange. One recognizes in him a feeling for color and poetry, whose exaggeration easily makes him forget the importance of precision in design and clarity of form. It would be desirable for him to be on guard against the vague impressionism, which is one of the most dangerous enemies of truth and works of art. So the poor guy was berated, brutally by his professors for his musical taste, and they used that word impressionism as a weapon. And I think forever since he resented being compared, unfairly so, because I think the Impressionist movement was a wonderful movement, and I think he had a wonderful tonality and sound and sensibility that we all love. But Elizabeth, what you've done with the piano, with music, and with all these wonderful pieces that we can only touch a little bit on tonight is just wonderful.
Well, we can only touch people who have ears and who are willing to open their hearts also. And thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll be posting this at some point. If you have friends that were not able to see this, please let them know that they'll be able to see it. We're going to send out a link to all of you for coming tonight, and I'll give you a list of all the different links that you can listen to Dr. Austin's music on, and hope you have many happy hours of listening ahead of you. thank you all again, and thank you to the Jenks Center and the Cummings grant for this time, and my wife, my wonderful, beautiful wife, Hillary, for setting this all up and arranging it and making it all possible. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.